What's up, guys? It's Sergio at the Trailhead, bringing this story about a local incident that happened here in my neck of the woods out here by Ontario, California, up by near Mount Baldy, and a very famous and locally known trail that we've all probably hiked on ourselves or know of someone who's been on there. And just wanted to share the story and just kind of bring awareness to safety and bring awareness to just human kindness and people stepping up and doing the right thing and helping people out however they can, whenever they can. So this is a real, pretty interesting story that happened out here. If you may or may not know about it, but there's this gentleman named Jason Lopez. He was 35 at the time. This happened back in January 23rd of 2016. So it's like the 3-year anniversary just happened, just took place. And this guy slid down about 1,000 feet on the California Timber Mountain, and his brother-in-law, who he was hiking with, his name is Rob Wayman. He's 29. He ended up having to mount a rescue to save Jason, and this is kind of the details of how that incident happened. And this is Jason's um, kind of telling of the story. This is how it happened from his vantage point. 500 feet below the summit of the 8,303-foot Timber Mountain in the California San Gabriels, I heard my brother-in-law Rob give a simple shout. I couldn't hear him over the swirling wind. I remember jabbing my trekking pole into the ground to try to get better footing on the icy scarp. I had this brief, horrifying sensation of slipping, like the kind that jolts you awake from a dream. Then, darkness. The trip started out beautifully. Undeterred by the January chill, Rob and I had planned on a mellow day hike along the Icehouse Canyon Trail, which starts on a packed snow right from the trailhead. We got going early that morning, reaching the trailhead just after dawn as the sun was filtering through the cedars. We saw one of the hikers wearing crampons, which seemed like overkill. With the benefit of fresh beta from my wife Jackie, who summited a week prior on microspikes, we'd settled on light duty traction, and we'd felt vindicated when we arrived at the trail. It didn't seem nearly as icy as it looked in Jackie's photos. With our spikes on, we made great time on the 4-mile, 2,600-foot ascent to Icehouse Saddle, where we stopped for lunch and admired the panoramic views of Cucamonga Wilderness. The wind began to pick up a bit, so we decided not to linger. After the saddle, the terrain only got steeper as we hit a series of switchbacks. Blowing snow obscured most of the route's markers, but we had a GPS device showing us the trail, and we both considered ourselves fairly experienced hikers. About 400 feet before the top, we hit a stretch where melting subsequent freezing had created a sheet of ice. I stopped for a moment to rest and adjust my pack for better balance. This is Rob. This is his brother-in-law, and these are his accounts of the situation. About halfway between the saddle and the summit, I shouted down to Jason that we should move over about 20 feet to an exposed dirt patch where the footing might be better. I expected to hear a response, but didn't. That's when I saw Jason go. His body twisted, and suddenly he was on his back and sliding downhill. I shouted at him to dig his spikes in, hoping that he would steer towards a nearby stand of trees. It was no use. He shot right past it and dropped out of sight. My entire body spasmed in terror. Even as I began shouting after Jason, my cries felt futile, doomed to silence. What kind of terrain was below the ridgeline? Had I just watched Jason fall to his death? 100 worst case scenarios flooded my mind. How would I break the news to my sister Jackie? Or Jackie and Jason's 11-year-old son and 10-year-old daughter? A moment later, I whirled around and called to a hiker about 20 yards ahead. While she made her way back to me, I took a few steps in that direction, and I'd seen Jason disappear. I'd hope he was still nearby, but I hope he was still nearby, but he couldn't hear me over the whirling wind. Maybe if I went slow and traversed downhill, I would be able to get to him. A small part of me still clung to the belief that this would just turn out to be a major pratfall that we'd laugh about later. I made it about 50 feet down the slope, but could go no further. The ice coating the ice coating the slope made it too dangerous. As though it was as tough as it was for me to admit, I knew I couldn't help Jason, even if I ended up needing rescue myself. Yvonne, the other hiker, agreed to hike back down the saddle with me to try to determine Jason's likely trajectory. Once there, we encountered another group of hikers, Brian, Mark, and Agson. They were wearing crampons and looked like they knew what they were doing. So I asked if they were experienced enough to aid in a search. Fortunately, Brian had some formal SAR training. After a few unsuccessful attempts to get through to 911, Yvonne offered to stay back and keep trying. Meanwhile, Brian organized a plan and led the rest of us into the valley. We split up to cover the slope at different elevation gradients, hoping to find Jason somewhere. As we bushwhacked, the weather continued to deteriorate, threatening to snow. We'd been searching for about 20 minutes when I heard someone call out in the distance. Mark had come upon Jason about 1,000 feet below where he had fallen. I raced over and stopped abruptly. I could see a trail of blood dotting the snow. Please let him be alive. Jason was unresponsive and his body was wedged against a bush. His face was all bloody and both eyes were swollen shut. He was withering in pain and shivering, but he was alive. I couldn't immediately assess whether Jason had broken any bones, so the others and I tried to stabilize him in a position where he couldn't accidentally slip further down the slope. We wrapped him in our extra jackets and a space blanket I'd packed. Mark hiked up a short distance back towards the saddle and managed to get a cell phone signal from there. He relayed our GPS coordinates to San Bernardino County Rescue personnel, who dispatched the helicopter. Then we could only wait. Jason still wasn't responding to any verbal commands. I felt a little better knowing that help was on the way, but I was also quietly fearful that the rescuers wouldn't reach us in time. After 20 minutes, I was relieved to hear whirring sounds nearby, except that the crew didn't see us. Despite my frantically waving my flu bleach jacket, the chopper peeled off in another direction. Jason thrashed in pain, drifting in and out of consciousness as we waited for the chopper to come back around again. Heavy snow began to fall, decreasing our visibility. 40 minutes later, the SAR team returned and sent two rescuers down on a rope. They strapped Jason into a stretcher and they put him in a body-sized basket lowered by the cable. As the chopper began hoisting Jason up, the secondary control rope broke loose, sending the basket spinning wildly in midair. Finally, the helicopter pilot stabilized the basket and brought Jason in. This is Jason now. I have no clear memory of the fall or the rescue. I was in a medical-induced coma for 5 days, during which I had strange dreams out of my body thoughts. My skull was cracked in 2 places, including the orbital fracture over my left eye that partially blurred my vision. It's difficult to form words sometimes, as a result of a brain injury similar to trauma from a car accident. My speech has been halting and confused. Every day since the accident, he has gotten a little clearer. I think back about what I could have done differently. More wilderness training might have helped. Better winter footwear might have too. But mostly, I realized that the experience doesn't protect against lapse in focus, even small ones. And no matter how many mountains you've climbed, there are no guarantees against bad luck. So that's Jason's story. They go on and give you, I think, about 6 good tips on snowfield safety. One of them is be flexible. Snow is unstable and it can change dramatically even over the course of the day. Be wary of O beta. Number 2, time it right. If avalanches aren't a concern, wait until later in the day when soft snow provides better traction. The flip side, it's always easier to travel over firm snow, so you're not post-holing. It says number three, pack smart, use traction devices and trekking poles. On steep, icy slopes, opt for crampons and an ice axe. Use micro spikes on snowy trails that have been packed by foot traffic. So it's very important, man. I know that I myself have been confused lately about, crampons and micro spikes. And maybe about 2.5 weeks ago, I was up at Mount Baldy and I was on my micro spikes and just going up the old Baldy, just the Mount Baldy trail, just the traditional one up the dirt road or the fire road, going up that steel right before San Antonio Falls. It was slippery. Like that's why I had to stop and put my micro spikes on because I was slipping. I was trying to go uphill. So that was I think, crampons, I don't own any. And sometimes you think it is overkill, but just this is the kind of stuff they kind of just say, man, pack smart. Number four, walk carefully with trekking pole in your uphill hand, traverse moderately steep slopes, use about 30 degrees, kick stomping each foot to displace snow for traction. Handle steeps. Number five, if the terrain drops off and you can't retreat, face into the slope for extra stability. Sidestep, kicking platforms for each foot and making sure all spikes are in contact with the snow. Number six, know how to fall. No, know how to fall. Practice self-arrest with an ice axe before crossing steepy, icy terrain. Grab the axe by the head with one hand, grip the shaft with the other hand, and drive the pick into the snow. No axe, improvise. Gouge your trekking pole, boots, hands, and knees into the snow. So this is an article written by Amanda Hermans. This is from Backpacker Magazine. I don't know if there's a date on this. It's June 9th, 2016. So this was shortly after Jason got hurt that this story got told. This is Jason here. This picture obviously was taken by Michael Dartner. This is Jason, and this is a picture of what Jason looked like in the hospital. It says Jason Lopez remained in a coma for 5 days as he recovered from injuries. Photo by Michael Darter. So this guy, look how he looks, man. You saw how he was described. He had broken his skull and his eyes had been just shut, bruised shut. And he broke one of his orbital bones over his eye. So poor guy got it really bad. This is Rob Wayman. This is his brother-in-law. So I want to share the story because it's pretty cool that the kind of end result for me that I ended up reading this story on backpacker.com many months ago. And obviously it struck kind of home to me because this is not too far from where I live and this is a mountain that I've been on. And I just kind of felt like, wow, that's crazy. What ended up happening to this guy and what was the end result of him? And then a couple of days ago, I was on Facebook and I was on the SoCal Hikers group page, and I came across this lady named Jackie Lopez, who is Jason Lopez's wife, who's actually mentioned in the original article. And she was here kind of giving you a 3-year anniversary of Jason and kind of what happened to him. So I thought it was pretty cool. I'll read you what it says. It says, Jason's 3-year anniversary in surviving falling down Timber Mountain. This is what happens when you bring microspikes and trekking poles instead of crampons, ice axe, and helmet. We were new to hiking and thought our gear was sufficient. Please don't underestimate the mountains in the winter conditions. Even with the right gear, it can still be dangerous. Take a winter mountaineering course and learn how to read terrain so that you can have a safe and fun experience. So here's kind of her situation. 3 years ago, my husband Jason Lopez fell over 2,000 feet out the side of Timber Mountain in the Mount Baldy area, sustaining multiple skull fractures, broken wrists, road rash, and traumatic brain injury. He would not have survived if not for the quick thinking of my brother Rob Wayman and other people in the mountain that day. Yvonne, that's her, Amy, and her husband Brian and their friend Anson. Because of their skill, they were able to locate Jason and contact SAR to hoist him out. He spent almost 3 weeks hospitalized, 1 week in ICU, a week in the hospital, and a week in acute rehabilitation center to learn basic skills that were affected by the TBI. I didn't know if I was going to be bringing home the same person I knew as my husband. It was hard to tell in the first few months how much he would recover. The first year was rough, but Jason never gave up, and by the grace of God, he was able to make a miraculous recovery. I posted the links of the articles written about his accident below in the comments. They reported a 1,000-foot fall, but we later learned that it was over 2,000 feet. I'm so thankful that our family is intact and so proud that the recovery Jason has made. He never gave up. So it's kind of like a cool little collage of photographs. So this is Jason Lopez. So this is 3 years ago, 3 years from the accident. There's his kids that are mentioned in the article. Here's Jason learning basic stuff. Here's the picture you've already seen. And I just thought it was such a cool thing um, that people in the hiking community, um, like the people mentioned here, were able to just aid and save and help however they could to help Jason's, not lose his life. I imagine he spends there another 30 minutes, another hour, how much different it would have made a difference in his life. And now this beautiful family, it's back together again, and they are intact, like Jackie said. And I was so touched by this story that I ended up contacting Jackie and just kind of, wanted to share with her, just how the story had touched me, as me myself being someone who's been, um, you know, in need of complete strangers' help and assistance, and I've been helped by complete strangers, and I know what it feels like. And I don't think I ever got the chance to thank my guys, and I'm glad Jason and his family did. So just a tip of the hat, not only to those specific individuals, but the whole hiking community as a whole. I mean, if you go to the SoCal Hikers page, you'll just read the hundreds of messages of support that this story and how much people have been touched by this story. But I thought it was a real cool story to bring awareness, like I said, to safety. And a lot of my friends on Instagram, and they're all out there, in the snow, climbing Mount Baldy and climbing the Baldy Bow and doing exciting stuff out there. And just be careful, man. I mean, I personally know how cool it is to be out there, and how awesome it is to be out there in nature and doing the things we love to do. But I think it says a lot also to be scared, to be aware, and be ready and informed and prepared for the winter conditions out in our local mountains. So anyway, just want to reach out and share this story. Thanks for stopping by. I hope to do more of these in different ways. And everybody stay safe out there, and check out my store. You can support me by checking out my store and seeing what I got in there, and see if there's anything you like. Feel free to check that out. 10% discount, Cali123. 10% discount, anything in the store. So thanks for coming through. Talk to you guys later. Peace.